Little bit wet from the shower. I've been busy this past week doing everything as a Gabrielle Chana Fox News correspondent. I've changed the opening to my news website. Why I've started this news website. I'm going to read something that I think really speaks to my heart. I saw newspaper reports which did not bear any relation to the facts. I saw great battles reported where there had been no fighting, and complete silence where hundreds of men had been killed. I saw troops who had fought bravely denounced as cowards and traitors, and others who had never seen a shot fired hailed as the heroes of imaginary victories. I saw history being written not in terms of what happened, but of what ought to have happened according to various party lines. The only propaganda line open to the Nazis and fascists was to represent themselves as Christian patriots saving Spain from a Russian dictatorship. This involved pretending that life in government Spain was just one long massacre via the Catholic Herald or the Daily Mail. But these were child's play compared with the continental fascist press, and it involved immensely exaggerating the scale of Russian intervention. Out of the huge pyramid of lies which the Catholic and reactionary press all over the world built up, let me just take one point: the presence in Spain of a Russian army. Devout Franco partisans all believed in this. Estimates of its strength went as high as 500,000. Now, there was no Russian army in Spain. There may have been a handful of airmen and other technicians, a few hundred at the most, but an army there was not. Some thousands of foreigners who fought in Spain, not to mention millions of Spaniards, were witnesses of this. Well, their testimony made no impression at all upon the Franco propagandists, not one of whom had set foot in government Spain. Simultaneously, these people refused utterly to admit the fact of German or Italian intervention at the same time as the German and Italian press were openly boasting about the exploits of their legionnaires. I have chosen to mention only one point, but in fact, the whole of fascist propaganda about the war was on this level. This kind of thing is frightening to me because it often gives me the feeling that the very concept of objective truth is fading out of the world. George Orwell, from Looking Back on the Spanish War, I believe he was referring to the war that took place during World War II when the Nazis took over Spain, Italy, and Germany, and the propaganda they used to promote their agenda. Right now, we've got a situation in Ukraine where the Jesuit Nazis have taken over Ukraine. And at my news website, I have a lot of interviews with Vladimir Putin about this and how it came about. Let me just go over what I've covered on the news so far on this website. I've had interviews with Brent Spiner, Vladimir Putin, Steven Spielberg, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Matthew McConaughey, Gerard Butler, with Gerard Butler regarding his Jesuit stalker Morgan Brown. He is not at all romantically interested in her. He's on my marriage list and very devoted to me. August 9th interviews, Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin decided that they did execute uh, Hillary's Jesuit vice president, Tim Kaine, and the Jesuit immediately replaced him with a very evil automaton. So Vladimir and I had an interview where he's encouraging everybody to write in your vote now for Donald Trump at gailsmen@yahoo.com or gailchordschuler@gmail.com. I've had a lot of interviews with Donald Trump where I've given him an opportunity to clarify his position and to expose a lot of the lies out there in the what I call the American Jesuit fascist news media about Donald Trump. They're on a rabid, fanatical blitzkrieg of all sorts of lies and propaganda to bring him down and ensure that their candidate, Hillary Clinton, gets into the White House. August 10th interviews with Donald Trump with Vladimir Putin, and a lot of interviews with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin because we have a very important, even though I am the American Empress, the Jesuits want to oust me as the Empress. And as I report in my news, my conspiracy law is only enforced about 50% in the United States because of Jesuit infiltration and Jesuit attempts to oust me as Empress and undermine my conspiracy law. Under conspiracy law, no Jesuit is allowed to hold public office, and I am the Empress. And Jesuits all deserve the death penalty as war criminals. We've already had a military tribunal against them where we tried them for their orchestration of World Wars I, World War II, the American Civil War. They orchestrated all of these wars. And a very good book on this is Secret History of the Jesuit by Edmund Paris, a French writer who the Jesuits murdered. And I am currently working on making a better translation of that book from the French to the English. I'm just using the English and writing it in. It's a very poor translation. I think the Jesuits sabotaged this man's book. They don't want a good English translation that's very understandable to the American people, so I'm working on that, though I'm very busy. I may not be able to get that book out as soon as I'd like. Very busy right now as a Gabrielle Chana Fox News correspondent. Okay, the August 11th interviews, Donald Trump's his Second Amendment comments, how he feels about how the press is covering him and what he really meant by that. You know, he got a lot of flack over his Second Amendment comments saying that maybe the gun people would be able to do something about Hillary Clinton, you know. You need to check my news website. Brent Spiner decided to comment about what they've learned about why Donald Trump will not release his tax returns and how he started using my news website for his ad campaign and the problems that Trump and my men have had with Jesuit impersonation, like their clones going into their Twitters, hacking into their accounts, and saying things that maybe Donald didn't say or Brent didn't say. From what I can tell, the Brent Spiner Jesuit clone still has 100% control over the real Brent Spiner's Twitter. And it's been this way for almost a year now. I have an interview about Matthew McConaughey, about his clone and Camilla Alves at the Olympics. We learned that the main reason that the Jesuits took over the Olympics, which they did, and it's actually being seen from a hologram off of the Jesuit spacecraft in outer space in combination with brain control on the athletes. And that's the real reason the Russian athletes were banned is not because of drug abuse. That's a big lie. It's because Vladimir Putin refused to have his Russian athletes go to the Jesuit spacecraft out in deep space to participate in the Olympics. He wouldn't play their game. So that's the real reason the Russian athletes, and I have an article on that. I have an interview with Vladimir Putin and Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani had a stuttering interview with CNN's Chris Cuomo, and I talk about that and why he was stuttering. He was actually under Jesuit brain control. He was being extorted into, they were trying to get him to betray Trump, and he wouldn't, and that's, so I have an interview about that. I have an interview with Vladimir Putin with Rudy Giuliani about why they demoted Sergei Ivanov. I also have an interview with Bill Shine, the executive director of Fox News, congratulating me on my new position as Fox News correspondent. I have an interview with Bernie Sanders with Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie has retracted his Hillary endorsement. He's done it on the Gabrielle Chana Fox News channel, and he explains why he endorsed her. They threatened his family, and he also explains why he bought his new house. He's being criticized for that as being a hypocrite. I have an interview with Vladimir Putin regarding news media lies about Ukraine's incursion into Crimea. Actually, they just did it in the past 24 hours. But previous to that, Russia has not been sending any troops anywhere. Vladimir Putin does not use 19th century methods to do war with the Jesuit order. If he needs to do war, he will use a nuclear bomb, or he will use 21st century methods like scanning technology. And what's really going on, and I have interviews with Vladimir about this, there wasn't some Ukrainian commandos that went into Russia in the past about 24 hours. And so Vladimir went down to Crimea, had a meeting with some of his top people, and they have built like a wall of China between Russia and Ukraine. And next time, if Ukraine tries to go into Russia's Crimea, they will be zapped out with a scanner from the wall. The wall can zap any Jesuits who try to go underneath it, above it, fly it, and it's also being photographed from satellite. So I have an article about that. Vladimir prefers to use a wall because that shows that he's not being the aggressor. He doesn't have dreams about bringing back the Soviet Union. He's just trying to defend his country from Jesuit attacks. So I have articles about that. I have an interview with Donald Trump why he chose Stephen K. Bannon as his campaign manager and exposing Glenn Beck as a Jesuit. He's a Jesuit. And that's on August 19th. I also have some evidence that Hillary Clinton's Clinton Foundation accepted Jesuit money, at least, probably more, but at least $10 million from Ukraine. And she was paid by the Jesuits. This was the evil Hillary Clinton clone, to topple a righteous government in Ukraine and set up a government in there that would be anti-Vladimir Putin. And the Jesuits did succeed in doing that. And they got cooperation from the Jesuit-run Nazi press in the United States, from Jesuit Hillary Clinton clone, and from an evil Jesuit clone of Barack Obama. That Ukraine never would have, this was a coup against a legitimately elected government, and I have articles about that. Vladimir Putin has an article where he weighs in on Donald Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, and allegations of his illegal money dealings and the truth about Jesuit Nazi Ukraine. They have an Adolf Hitler over there. Poroshenko is Adolf Hitler in Ukraine. They've got a Nazi government over there. It's a Jesuit Nazi government. I'm also starting a new series at my news site where I'm going to get like old letters that I wrote to Vladimir and right there, that I wrote to Vladimir and Brent in 2001, 2002, because I didn't have a computer, and I would put it in my mailbox, and I was hoping, without a postage stamp, and President Bush was supposed to forward these to Vladimir. We're finding out that they didn't get all of them, but it's just going to take a couple months. I'm showing these letters at the news site, and we'll be discussing them in an interview and how my men feel about what I wrote back then and how things have changed between like 2001 and 2002 to now. And that's going to be a series. Kind of like Oliver North has war stories. This is my love letter stories. It's my series, which I'll be, that I'll be working on that like for the next couple of years, maybe at the Gabrielle Chana Fox News channel. Vladimir Putin has learned that all the independents running for U.S. president are evil Jesuits designed to bring down Trump. Trump's an anti-Jesuit candidate, so the Jesuits hate him. We also discussed how there are the Jesuit Muslims and strategies to deal with Islamic and Jesuit terrorism. So I have an article about that at my news channel. Also, the polls are very inaccurate. When you conduct a poll in a conspiracy law honoring nation, you are not supposed to poll Jesuits because Jesuits are ineligible to vote. They don't have citizenship rights. They're considered war criminals. And all the polls that you're seeing on Jesuit Nazi news in the United States, all the mainstream news, they include Jesuits in the polls. If you exclude Jesuits, Donald Trump has a landslide victory in the United States. So they're all lying. And even when you include Jesuits, Donald Trump's ahead. And I have articles about that. But the news is just lying because they want to rig the election, get Hillary Clinton into power, and make it look like they didn't rig the election. So they're setting things up that way. I have Vladimir Putin made a passionate statement regarding U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill's accusation that Putin and Trump are the founders of ISIS. I have an article about that. And also Ivanka, I have an article with an interview with Ivanka Trump regarding her appearances, which are fabricated, with Jesuit Wendy Dang Murdoch, who Jesuits are alleging has an affair going on with Vladimir, which is a bunch of crap. And I also have an interview regarding Jesuit independent candidate Evan McMullen. He is a Jesuit who's running in there to try to take votes from Trump to make sure that Hillary gets in. So check my news site. I've been very busy working on it. I've given you a recap of my main. I also have articles about Black Lives Matter and how Vladimir's been playing golf in Syria and there are no soldiers there. The news media is a big liar, and my news channel is out there to get the truth out.